Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniXTCG, and today we are doing the first video I've recorded in my new space. We're still working out a little bit on the backdrop, we're still working out a little bit on the angles. There's a lot of stuff we're working on, but what I do want to say is that we're going to start trying to get that content train moving again. If I sound a little nasally, it's because I'm a little sick, but we are going to continue. So there's a lot of news swirling around the One Piece community, and today we're going to focus on the almost shadow. I guess it wasn't a shadow restriction, but they definitely did post it on the site before actually announcing it anywhere. And then we're going to talk about a little something happening that's actually pretty spoiler territory, so I'll give a warning again before I get to that point. The first thing we're going to talk about is the elephant in the room, red. And yeah, right before we jump into that, I just wanted to say that thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you guys for waiting for content. We're going to have a lot more One Piece content, a lot more Battle Spirits content, a lot more Dragon Ball Super content. There's a lot of stuff swirling around. I might make just a pure video talking about a roadmap, but we're trying to get back on track. So with that being said, if you like the content, do the most in support by liking the video, commenting so you know just video trends, and maybe even subscribing if you haven't already. That really does help the brand. You can go down to the link tree and check out all the links so you can see all the quadrants of Universe X, and we can get to bussin' with all this content and gaming and recording and whatnot. So now let's talk about red. So on this list, this restricted list, we have 3 cards pretty much coming directly from red, going from their maximum copies of 4 to 1. And those cards are Edward Newgate from OPO2, Radical Beam from OPO1, and Marco from OPO2. Now, if you guys haven't just need a refresher or anything like that, Edward Newgate is a 9-drop. He's a big, beefy boy. He is gonna come down and give your leader plus 2k for your turn and your opponent's turn. And then when he has 2 Dawn under him, he can smoke something on your opponent's side of the board that has 3,000 power or less. He is a monster, though, mainly because he allows your leader to be 7k if it's a 5k leader. And as we all know from the magic numbers video, or playing this game to some great degree, 7 is a very good number to poke at a base 5k leader, because they have to discard not 1 but 2 cards minimum, and one of those cards has to be a 2k. So it's a very, very good poking number to drain the hand or potentially force through some damage. But once you have Whitebeard on the board for that turn, you have to go up to 8k, and 8k can also just be 2k away. Like, you are it's a pretty solid number Whitebeard can boost you to. But also it's good on the offense too. To turn you Whitebeard, you can swing for that. But if you are playing Whitebeard himself, Whitebeard goes up to an 8k, and swinging for 9k multiple times a turn is not very feasible unless your board is already set up to some degree with big bodies. Then the next card that I want to talk about was Radical Beam. We all know and love or hate Radical Beam. You gain 2,000 power when you are basically 2,000 counter when you have just the normal activation. But if you have 2 life or less, you gain 4,000. And this is crazy because basically in the second half of the game, when you're at 2 life or less as a red leader, or especially with those dual color leaders that only start at 4 to begin with, Radical Beam is going to allow you to boost yourself up to 9,000 for just 1 Dawn. That's a very low investment for a very high boost. That puts him on the levels of Blast Breath without having to minus a Dawn, and Blast Breath was considered pretty much the best extra or event card in set 1 for defense. It's just monstrous. So with that being said, you really are sitting there being able to defend yourself very, very well. And then since Whitebeard costs 9, Radical Beam is able to still be able to be played from there. So you're 7k, you can easily defend yourself, and you can go up to 11k one time in the defending turn, making that Whitebeard come down, and then you survive, and then you can use him as a beat stick, potentially playing another Whitebeard, which locks your opponent, puts your opponent in the very same position, except now they have to think about how they can get rid of the first Whitebeard if it already swung the turn you played the second. Things like that. Radical Beam was pretty much played in every red deck at this point, unless you decided to forego extras, and it was just a very good card. And then last but not least, you have Marco from OPO2. He is a blocker. He costs 4. He's a 5k, and once you have 2 or less life, you can discard a Whitebeard Pirates card to bring him back in rest mode if he is destroyed. And this together, Radical Beam and Marco, made a very solid defensive suite for red decks. It also allowed red decks to take their first 5 their first 4 to 3 life, depending on what leader you're playing, and then just know that Marco and Radical Beam pretty much have you in terms of defense. It was very hard to touch these red decks once they stabilize and have the correct pieces on board and in hand. So they eradicated those cards. 1 Radical Beam, 1 Marco, 1 Whitebeard. And what this basically does for the decks, it means that you can't successfully hit these double Whitebeards anymore. That used to be a thing. Whitebeard comes down and it's not the end of the world. You do lose momentum because you know you can't push as hard, so you have to focus on their board, but a smart Whitebeard player is not going to swing with anything they don't feel. Whitebeard or Zoro or anybody, a successful red player is not going to Whitebeard you and then turn everything sideways that you can just pick off the next turn. They're going to Whitebeard you, hold back with anything they don't think they need for their anything they think they need for their game push, and then your only place you can attack is the leader, which they can defend very well, and then they will swing at you full force next turn. But then the double Whitebeard play is the most backbreaking, because then you have 2 turns where you can't really do anything, and then next turn they're coming at you with a leader, whatever they have on board, 2 Whitebeards. It's very destructive. You can't really put small blockers out because they'll be snatched up immediately. Now, moving past that, the Marco isn't exactly the most hurtful. Marco is a very strong card, but now it's just, instead of having generally 2 blocks on board, you'll have a 1 blocker on board that can just be very, very sticky if you find them. Between Ezo and Whitebeard Pirates, Curly to Dawn, you're probably going to find this Marco anyway at some point in your game. A 1-of sucks, but the deck is very, very accessible for that search. And then next, you're actually going to be able to look at Radical Beam, which is probably one of the most impactful ones, because Radical Beam was used in every red deck pretty much. Like I said, unless you chose to forego extra cards, Whitebeard was used, or Radical Beam was used in Law, because Law is a 4-life leader, gets down to 2 very easily, and then can have its defenses up between blockers and Radical Beam. It can be used in any future dual color red decks that start at 4 life. It's just a very solid, consistent card, and it's unfortunate to see it go, but with the way red is right now and its dominance, it probably had to. So when we look at the breakdown of what this does for the format, the first and foremost thing you want to talk about is Whitebeard. Whitebeard takes one of the biggest hits. Whitebeard still has its vanillas. Whitebeard still has the ace card, which is a vital card in its offense. Rush, bringing things down by 3,000, swinging on them, that's tight. It still has guard point, which is going to allow it to get to 9k, but what it no longer has is the ability to go to 10k off of 1 Dawn, and that actually is a lot when it comes to math. Not for leaders, because 9k is blocking leaders pretty easily, but for bigger bodies, that's going to actually do some things. Like going, an Isho can swing in black raw for 9. Now, guard point is just going to tie it, and you'll have to get rid of another card. It's not going to Radical Beam it and get one over for 1 Dawn. Same with 7 cost Big Mom. There's actually a lot of cards that are going to swing, and guard point will only make it neutral for these things. So it changes around the math a lot. The Marco going down to 1 is very important, because Whitebeard needs some in-themed blockers in order to sustain itself when it's at 0 life but it has like a gajillion cards in hand. Now, without Marco being on tap, you'll have these turns where you either need to bait Marco once or just blow it up once, and then you know that all of your attacks are just going to be straight to their hand. So Whitebeard is in a precarious position, and then, like I said, in Whitebeard, Whitebeard playing the Whitebeard character card is such a boon, because going up to 8k is a very, very strong wall for a bunch of neutral swings. So Whitebeard is in a position where it likely is not going to be the strongest deck in the format anymore with the highest ceiling. Its defense has just got 2 gates, and that's fine, because red shouldn't have been the deck that needed the most, that had the most defense and offense at the same time. That's just not how it's supposed to be. So moving past that, we now have Ace, and I think Ace actually caught the biggest stray of all, because Ace had the best Whitebeard turns in the game, in my opinion. It didn't get as high as Whitebeard in terms of attack and defense, but once you use Ace, or once you use Whitebeard and Ace, you have your Radical Beam or guard point to put you even higher, but you also have the ability to discard extra cards to give just more power, counter power to your leader. So you had a very safe Whitebeard turn. Double Whitebeards are very, very, very relevant there too, because you can do the same thing again. Ace had very good Whitebeard turns. Ace had very good, Ace needed Marco, because Ace doesn't play like a gajillion quality body, or a gajillion bodies, but it plays some very strong quality bodies, and Blocker Marco was one of those. And then you also don't have Radical Beam as part of your defensive suite. Ace can still ball, don't worry, but Ace definitely took a blow in what it was doing. Following that, you then have Law. Law is pretty much untouched. Law did lose Radical Beam, but if you don't remember, Law played a gajillion blockers, the Choppers, the Beges, the Law character card itself. Law still has a lot of blockers, and outside of Diablo Jambe and stuff like that, and Rush Luffy, I think Law still just plays perfectly fine. You just kind of have to find your sweet space. Now, Law still does suffer because Fire Fist is in there. You can build a build to hopefully not get completely mised, but Fire Fist on a high roll at 2 crucial moments in the game, plus, you know, all the other things, the Marcos and whatnot, you could potentially get blown out. So Law's still kind of in its position. I think it's a little better because, you know, Whitebeard is taken out and Ace may not be played as much, but you still have a lot of things to look out in your own color of red. And then what you've got past that is Zoro. A lot of people are like, yeah, hooray, the tear is over. Zoro is probably best deck in format right now. I'm just going to put it out there. I think it's Zoro and Katakuri. And Zoro, like, there have been people that have been topping without event cards, without Whitebeard in the deck, without Blocker Marco. So in all honesty, Whitebeard isn't going anywhere. It's just still here. So, or not Whitebeard, Zoro. So if you don't know how to play against Zoro yet, you probably still need to play against Zoro. So that is pretty much what we're doing here. Understand that Zoro is still top dog in the format. He may have gotten weaker defensively because of the Blocker Marcos and the Radical Beams, but some people were foregoing that to go full offense in the first place. So right now, I think you have Zoro and Katakuri being the top dogs. Law and Ace are still red decks that can be played well. Whitebeard is a little bit of a gamble now and probably get caught off guard a little more. But now with that being said, you have some decks that can still kind of ball hard. Doflamingo, I still say don't count that deck out. Now that some of the aggression has petered out, you have Zoro to deal with, and they can still be blown up like they're small blockers. But for the most part, if yellow becomes dominant, the decks that thrive with yellow in the format are decks that build up a lot of board because yellow has very little innate destruction. So Law, Doflamingo, there's a lot of things that can get under yellow's kind of momentum. So we're gonna have a bit of a ball. We're gonna do some testing. We're gonna see how the new format goes. We'll have some more gameplay videos up so you guys will be able to see that. Now, I do need to talk about my sponsor. They are the best, Mystic TCG. You should go on their site right now. In the description, the link will be there, and use my code. Use my link, use my code UNIXTCG to get 10%, 5% off of your entire order. And it's gonna be a good time. They will take boxes down to a point where they're just less expensive than any other place you can get them, really. And you can start pre-ordering for your set 5, I believe, at this point. So yeah, get on there, get your savings, make sure that your boxes are locked down so that you can hunt your next set of cards. Set 4 is sort of around the corner, don't forget that. And set 5 has some stuff in there that we're about to talk about now. So I'm gonna roll the Mystic TCG ad as per usual, and make sure you check them out to make sure you can see what you can pre-order. And after that, we're gonna get into some spoiler territory. So if this is where you no longer want to see something that's happening in the manga or the anime, I suggest you click off the video after you watch the Mystic TCG part. So let's get into it. So let's talk about Mystic TCG, your one-stop shop for all your TCG needs. On the site, you can buy or pre-order plenty of sealed product for plenty of games. Just make sure though, if you're pre-ordering, to give it 3 to 4 months in advance to start looking, because sometimes the product is indeed hot, supply and demand, you know. And then if you want to buy singles, go on tcgplayer.com. There's going to be a link in the description where you can buy for the best value. And if you want to sell cards or collections, you can message them on their Facebook site so you can get the best bang for your buck on any type of way you want to buy or sell cards. And then while you're at it, you can use the code UNIXTCG at checkout to get even more of a discount. So hey, what are you waiting for? Check out Mystic TCG today. All right, so like I said, Mystic TCG, best sponsor. And yeah, get your savings. Now, once again, we're having a spoiler warning. This is it. This is the last one. Now, I normally don't talk about OCG because I want to be focused where in the format that we're playing in. But we just got spoilers for set 5, and we are going back to Wano. They're the 3 Supernova captains, Kid, Law, and Luffy. But what we're going to be focusing on is that they decided to spoil with all the hype, and again, spoiler warning. with all of the hype in this game right now, in the show, they decided to show the next secret rare manga rare. Next set will have a secret rare Kaido. And we're gonna get to that a little later, but we have, well, maybe in another video, but the most important thing I wanted to touch on before we end this video is that there is a secret rare Gear 5 Luffy. I'm putting him up on the screen right now. That's his normal art. It looks amazing. You follow it up with his secret rare alt art, which is crazy, and you already know what this means, and that is right. We have a manga rare Gear 5 Luffy. And what he says here is Dawn -10. Dawn -10 when he's played, take another turn. And I know what people are thinking. Well, this is a lot. This is stupid. If it's Dawn -10, what's the point? Well, what you see, the point here is you're to play him on an established board. He's a momentum monster, but if your board is already established, you already have some straight monsters on your board, and you -10, you're going to be able to swing out with everything that's not Gear 5 Luffy, and then take another turn, and then swing out with gain 2 Dawn, and then swing out with everything, including Gear 5 Luffy, for a potentially devastating turn. Now, the other thing is, if you notice, your leaders from the starter deck, from this set, like, you have cards that thrive off of 0 Dawn, off of low Dawn. So sequencing with the right board, you might be able to get some Dawn back and then go off. We're gonna go into those plays a lot later. It's gonna be pretty insane. This card is going to be so chased. If you pull Gear 5 manga rare, you're just making your case and a half back. There's no way this card just doesn't go nuclear. So I want to know what your thoughts are about everything in this video. The red bans and limits, the Gear 5 Luffy secret rare and manga rare. This is just an insane time to be a One Piece card game fan, and we are going to start hammering this content. Thank you guys for waiting. Thank you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video. And if you don't like Battle Spirits, you don't like Dragon Ball, and you don't like One Piece, do me a favor, like every video that I put out, because I guarantee I will come back to this game. You know I will. It's one of the posters in the back. I just need to make sure that I spread all of these games out and build the fan base throughout multiple franchises. So thank you guys for supporting me. I love you all, and I will see you in the next video. Later.